Namo Phat. Thanks so much for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This wonderful sound calls us back to our true home. The second mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I vow to cultivate loving kindness and learn ways to work for the well-being of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I will practice generosity by sharing my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in real need. I'm determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. I will respect the property of others, but I will prevent others from profiting from human suffering or the suffering of other species on earth. For our Dharma lessons, we're reading More Than Mindfulness, Widening the Field of Practice by the Monastics of Abhayagiri Monastery. We're continuing in a Dharma talk by Ajahn Viradhammo called Mindfulness, Vitality, and Inquiry. The suggestion to be here, now, is what makes mindfulness more continuous in consciousness. The remembering of what it means to be present, the feeling of being present, and the sense of gratitude for being present, to really begin to know what presence is. Then the factor becomes more powerful. The opposite to that is heedlessness. Those who are heedless are already dead. When I'm not aware, all kinds of ego states can come up. Let's say I'm resentful about something. I'm not aware of it. It comes into the mind, and that resentment takes over in thought. I become a resentful person. I start to think resentful thoughts, and that is a kind of birth. That is suffering. And yet, if I am attentive, I can see a feeling of resentment, but I don't grab it. I don't think that way and don't attach to it. That is the freedom from the cycle of birth and death. The amount of memory we have and the number of experiences we've had as human beings is endless. Mindfulness is what really cuts through it all. It doesn't repress it because you still feel your karma, the experiences of your life, but you don't indulge in it. Mindfulness just knows it. If I can train in that, it is the factor of awakening, the factor of enlightenment. It is a way to get off the wheel of ego suffering that we can get into. When we speak of mindfulness, people sometimes think that it means you have to move very slowly. I don't know why. Or they think it means controlling everything or never feeling emotions like grief. Sometimes people think you're mindful, you're not going to feel grief. Why? Or you're not going to feel anger. Why? But there can be the knowing of anger, what anger feels like as opposed to believing in anger. There's a huge difference between knowing anger and believing in anger. There's an enormous difference between believing in your irritation with someone and knowing you are irritated. And that difference is freedom. We can find some things very difficult to be aware of. We're so habituated to distracting ourselves away from childhood traumas, from pains, or from loneliness. They can be very hard. We have this resistance to looking at them. Part of unraveling our karma is slowly entering into areas that we find difficult. I've certainly seen that in myself. The things that I am aware of are much more subtle than 20 or 30 years ago, and yet they still come out. There's a progression in the practice from grossness to more and more continuity and more subtlety, but the awareness is the same. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Namo Adida Phat. Thanks so much for joining me today.